All right. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the first of our two startup competitions. My name is Richard Weisbach, and I am the Interactive Events Lead here at the Sloan Sports Analytics Conference. We're really excited to welcome you to the startup competition at the Sports Conference, sponsored by 42 Analytics. We had the most competitive group of companies ever to apply to this competition. Over 60 applied, and we ended up choosing 14, which we broke down into two tracks. What you're going to see right now is our sports technology track, which are essentially companies whose end user are either teams for the purposes of bettering their product on the field or athletes in order to perform better. We have a panel of three phenomenal judges. We have Ben Alamar, Hannah Clough, and Jerry Ho. They're going to be judging startups based on the following criteria: whether or not the startup has a clear value proposition, their product market fit, the startup's impact on the industry, whether or not the startup has a clear go-to-market strategy, the startup's team, and of course, their presentation today. Presentation-wise, each startup will get a 5-minute pitch, and then we'll get 3 minutes of question and answer from our judges. And with that, I'm gonna turn it over to the startup competition lead for the conference, Rachel Blum, who's going to get these things going. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Richard. Hi, I'm Rachel Blum. I'm the co-lead for the interactive event, specifically the Sportstech startup competition. Thank you all for coming. I also want to add one thing that Richard didn't add. We've had a ton of international companies, so we had guys fly in from Australia, Sweden, Ireland, all over the place. So really excited to kick this off. And Trinity VR will be our first company.
Hi, my name is Matt Cook. I'm the CEO of Trinity VR.
I'm Rohad Ahmed. I'm co-founder and chief of strategy.
So, when we deal with teams, we first started off our baseball journey by going directly to them. We wanted their direct feedback, so we asked them the question: what do you wish you could do? One of the coaches jumps in and goes, well, I wish we could hit Clayton Kershaw. And that joke went on beyond just one team. All of a sudden, next thing you know, it was Max Scherzer, it was Chris Sale, and we found a direct problem that teams had. They couldn't face or practice against the pitchers that they see day in and day out. So from there, we knew that Clayton Kershaw wasn't coming to their practice, right? That's where we knew, from being virtual reality experts, we needed to bring them to these teams through virtual reality simulations. That's where we created Diamond FX. This proprietary solution, in dealing directly with teams, we needed to replicate the pitcher and pitches identically to how it's experienced in a real game day type of scenario. That led us to building a proprietary pitch modeling engine that replicates the pitches one for one, so they look identical to real life. And this has been validated by teams as well as players alike. Next part of it for the solution was actually bringing in the actual pitcher. So how do we do that? Through video integration. That's another proprietary solution that we have. We can also bring it in through biomechanic data. The last part of it was actually replicating those real at-bats, utilizing historical data of how pitchers would pitch to a given player. Here's a brief experience of what it would look like inside of this headset. We could even slow it down and look at it in slow motion and see the actual seams of that pitch come in. Now, if you want to experience the real thing, we have a booth set up. Please come by and check it out. The next generation of data. So historically, we look at box score stats. That's what teams utilize in order to make decisions. We're seeing a lot of great innovative companies doing in-game, realistic statistics from the real game. However, there hasn't existed a virtual simulation data set. That's something that we've been able to provide to teams now. So let's say to give you a scenario, an example of a guy who plays in AAA, they have no idea how they're going to perform against a Major League Baseball pitcher. Well, now they're able to do that and actually take a look to see, okay, this player is going to be able to hit Dallas Keuchel. Don't take our word for it. D. Gordon, this is what his experience has been and what he stated in regards to our technology, but he's not the only one. We also have several baseball players. I wish I could state their names. Unfortunately, Major League Baseball teams are very private, and they don't want their competition to know that they have our product and that they're utilizing it in order really to gain their batters an additional advantage. The results speak for themselves as well. We've seen pitch recognition increase. We've seen reaction times increase. But all of a sudden, how does that relate to on-field performance? That's where in 6 major batting categories, we've seen statistical gains. The biggest gain that we saw was actually an OPS plus, which is something that teams look at very heavily.
At Trinity VR, we are ultimately a virtual simulations company specializing in sports. Our goal is to become the leader in the space, and we're starting in baseball. Currently, we are working with we're actually deployed with Major League Baseball teams. And one of my favorite instances of this is in the Dominican Republic, where we've had about 200 players go through the system. We've been able to identify about 3 or 4 players who can actually identify major league level pitches at 90% roughly rate, far exceeding any of their peers. So our client now has the option of taking the data of that player and accelerating their development through the farm system, which is very, very exciting. On the other hand, the market has allowed us to actually start going into colleges, high schools, and our goal is to drop all the way down to the youth level, in line with the ability of hardware to come out into the market. So later this year in the spring, Oculus is going to be releasing a $400 wireless headset, which suddenly becomes an instant solution for youth levels. On top of that, we can actually scale the product all the way down to something such as simple as an iPad and drop it into the Apple Store. Now, none of this would be actually able to be done without an amazing team that's capable of delivering this product. And Matt, for instance, is a former professional golfer and a golf simulation expert. He's been able to bring a lot of his expertise into this space. I'm a former emerging technology investor who's obsessed with sports economics, and you can kind of understand why I like this. My 3 co-founders, for instance, are technical, and they're absolutely brilliant in how they've been able to take a vision and actually turn it into reality, pun intended. And all I can say, and to repeat what Matt said earlier, I really urge you to come by and check out the actual demo, because until you feel it and see it, it just isn't the same thing. Thank you.
We're going to open it up for Q&A now.
Guess I'll start. Thank you, guys. Can you talk a little bit about the revenue model you're thinking about?
Sure. We're a SaaS-based model. We've noticed that in terms of the data that we are both collecting and the pitches, for instance, that need to be operated on as the simulations go by, we store a lot of that on the cloud. The data is processed in the cloud. And we realize that as a company, every successive year, we're actually going to be adding features. So it makes sense that right now, for instance, we're working on a catching module, which is not part of the core product, but as the next season comes on or next quarter comes on, that's an optionality that we give. Same as a scouting data that we may be getting from high schools or junior high. We go up to the Yankees and say, hey, listen, we got Florida junior high kids. Do you want that data set? That's an additional potential revenue model for us.
Sure, and then just to follow up on that a little bit, when you look ahead in terms of your driving adoption in baseball and then beyond other sports, what are you guys looking to your future revenue? How do you look the future years to expand?
So we definitely want to move beyond baseball. Obviously, baseball is a core bread and butter for us right now, but we look to move into golf in addition to other sports. And then obviously, as we build it out for the professional level, having something that is, I guess you could say, real to professionals, as you work your way downstream, that credibility and validation is there in order to move that product to colleges, high schools, consumers, and so forth.
So a couple of questions. First, when you, at the major league level, it's obvious who the pitchers are that you put in here. Mm-hmm. At college level and lower, how do you model, what's the representation of the pitcher at those levels that you use to figure out how to train these kids?
Great question. So one, certainly there are some D1 schools that have TrackMan data. They've been subsidized by MLB, for instance, in order to collect that data and bring it back up to the major league level. However, there's teams that do not. And certainly as we move down into high schools and into the youth levels, we're going to recreate pitches based off of data that we've had. So we could actually go into the system, put in data sets so that, let's say a high school coach wants to vary and all of a sudden have his guys training against an 85-mile-an-hour fastball, which could be realistic in terms of high school. That's something that we're going to be able to do based off of the data sets that we have. But in addition to that, to replicate the actual pitcher and windup, we're going to be building out avatars based off of biomechanic data. And that's one of the reasons why we had the biomechanic pipeline.
Okay. So the other question is, you mentioned that the system has been validated by pro teams and players. What do you mean by that?
So validation, well, one, I wish there was a lot I could say in regards to it, but it has been validated within their own findings. So they have actually started to make personnel decisions based off of the data that they have found here.
Having worked at pro teams, they've made decisions off of all kinds of data that doesn't necessarily make it good. Is there some way to understand, like when you put some of these major league players on your system versus Kershaw, and then compare how they actually did against Kershaw and see that it's the same thing?
So that's exactly right, and that's part of their validation process and what they do internally.
Okay.
One last question.
Yes.
Oh, go ahead.
You go. Okay. Mine will hopefully be quick, but as far as validation, have you guys been going to teams with sort of free demos, or have they also validated your pricing?
Great question. So we started off with a beta last year. So for the first 6 months of the year, we actually had 3 teams in our beta program, and that's part of the validation process too. That was the beta results that you saw with the improvements not only within our system but to the on-field performance. And then from there we commercialized in June, which was the middle of the season, and we actually had teams move forward at that point.
Yeah. None of the co-founders, we are not originally sports people, so we actually went to teams directly when we started and asked them, what do you want, what do you need, and we built it out for them. So I would say 90% of our product development is direct feedback loop from the people who will use it.
And hopefully last question. Can you guys just talk a little bit about competition and defensibility? Like, are there other people doing this? What prevents someone from copying it?
The stickiness factor is very important. As we work with teams, they are embedding their TrackMan data as well as their videos into the system. Patents aside, which is kind of a different discussion, we do own the patent for this specific system. The ability to actually have the most realistic pitch modeling engine has become a big, big deal. And that's something that, I'm again happy to have you come by and see it, but that's pretty much everybody we've talked to, including people at the league level, have said it's the most accurate. And we feel like as we start collecting larger and larger data sets and getting entrenched in this process, it allows us to stay 2 to 3 steps ahead, because the more data you have, the better you can refine the full system from top down.
Perfect. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Perch.
How's it going, guys? So, can you hear me? All right. My name's Jacob Rothman. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Perch. So I'm sure, as you guys are aware, technology is revolutionizing fitness. So the wearable market's projected to be it's a $48 billion market by the end of 2023. We have companies like Peloton with a $4 billion valuation, and then companies like eGym, Mirror, and Tonal that have raised large rounds, kind of bring unique, data-driven fitness experiences to consumers. And it's hard to imagine exercising without technology. 11 million people in the U.S. run regularly. That's over 100 days a year, and 93% of these runners use technology to help them train. However, those who strength train don't have to imagine. The strength training market is a large and growing market. 12 million people in the U.S. regularly strength train, but they don't have the technology they need to help them solve their problems. So as a quick analogy, when you go into the weight room, you have access to sets, reps, how much weight you lifted. So actually the activity that you did. That's equivalent to kind of going to a track, running around the track 4 times without a stopwatch. You know what you did, but you actually don't know how well you did that exercise. This kind of puts, those strength training are now manually entering data. It's only surface level data. This puts them at risk of injury and they receive less than optimal performance. So what Perch does is we use computer vision and machine learning to enable safe, smart, and connected strength training workouts. So here's how it works. So a coach will buy Perch and he'll install it on any one of his weight racks. It's a really quick install, one-time installation, kind of creating a smart weight rack. But the computer vision algorithms are robust enough that you can move it around the weight room, even put it on the ground. Once installed, an athlete will walk up and they'll sign in. They'll enter in how much weight they're lifting, what exercise they're performing. We have plans in the future to capture this information automatically. Once they start lifting, our computer vision algorithms are able to find the object of interest, locate it in 3D space, all in under 30 milliseconds on a computer the size of a credit card. We then parse this data into the actual number of sets and reps performed, and we deliver that information to the athlete in real time. This educates and motivates the workout, keeps them safe. Then all this information is stored so an athlete or coach can access it after the workout. We initially plan on targeting professional, collegiate, and special operations athletic facilities. Several reasons for this. One, there's a large value proposition. These guys are actively preparing for competition or combat. Two, it's a technically feasible problem. So these strength coaches really want two pieces of information: real-time feedback of velocity and power output. This isn't by no means an easy problem, but it's a little bit more feasible to kind of get to market and provide value right now. This allows us to work with influencers and experts. We can improve our brand and also improve our product more quickly by working with these guys. We can also kind of collect large data sets on these athletes, allowing us to provide more value both in the athletic market and longer term or larger tangential markets. And so what is the value proposition? So we can now collect valuable data that you previously couldn't. We can also enhance motivation through competition and gamification. This is passive data collection, so there's no wearables, there's nothing attached to the athlete or the barbell. And then if you use this data correctly, you can reduce injury and optimize performance, which is very important at the elite level. So right now, we just started rolling out product this last fall. We're already in 22 of the most elite athletic institutions in the country or in the world. New York Giants, Miami Dolphins, University of Georgia, several special operations facilities are all either demoing or using the product. And we have a pipeline of over 100 other elite organizations currently waiting on product. So the business model, so we sell our hardware up front, and we also offer a leasing model, and then there are also additional software subscription services on top of that. However, Perch doesn't want to be constrained to the weight rack. We want to enable the Amazon Go of the gym. So imagine this kind of experience. You walk into the gym, and then based off your fitness goals and kind of current equipment availability, we give you a customized workout routine. You walk through, you hop on the treadmill, go to the resistance training machines, then you finish up with a couple squats. And all this data is passively tracked and collected. We pull data from all these different devices in your wearables, and now this data is no longer siloed. We have a complete picture of kind of your performance and health. This data really can become extremely valuable just because you now have a complete picture. And you can then share it with healthcare professionals, personal trainers, insurance companies, you name it. How do we go to market? So right now we're targeting the 4,000 pro college and special operations facilities. Next step is to kind of go international sports performance as well as Big Army, and then eventually start targeting commercial fitness facilities like CrossFit boxes and chain gyms. But Perch is not necessarily just a fitness company, but we're a technology company. All of the computer vision we've developed, the machine learning we do is totally in-house and proprietary. We plan on taking our technology and targeting markets that are where quality of movement or movement is important. This includes rehab, insurance, workplace ergonomics, and more. And we're the team to do it. The team is composed of 3 recent or former MIT student athletes with backgrounds in mechanical, electrical, and software engineering. Everything you see here from the custom computer vision pipeline to the hardware has all been developed by us in-house in the last year and a half and under a couple $100,000 of funding. So there's a huge ceiling for where we can take this product. Thank you so much, and happy to answer any questions.
Very cool. Can you talk a little bit about just the maintenance of the system? Like, do you guys have a support staff? Do you guys support it? Do you outsource the support? What does that look like?
So we are working with a couple or finalizing some partnership agreements with some large distributors, which will certainly help. But we do everything like our own right now. So far with our initial customers, there hasn't been a ton of support needed. And partially because of that, it's kind of a one-time install. There's nothing connected to the athlete, so there doesn't really need to be a lot of support or like repair. But for software support, we provide all of that.
So more data is always great, but what are the sort of the specific decisions that this data is going to enable that we can't make now in an informed way?
Yeah, so there's a ton of stuff you can do with this data without going into too much detail. Like one specific example would be, let's say you're in a college environment and you have 2 athletes. One's well rested, the other one just pulled an all-nighter studying for an exam. In a typical weight room environment, you say, okay, go do 5 sets of 5. Without this technology, both would complete their sets, right? A coach would have no idea kind of the level of that performance. But with the technology, you can see one athlete struggling to complete their sets. Their velocity is low. They're not exerting as much power, while one athlete is like overperforming. So like that allows a coach to kind of make real-time decisions about workload, how much weight they should have on the barbell. You can start noticing longitudinal like decreases in performance, and you can take action based off of that. Right now, there's no way for you to really like tell without asking each athlete individually.
A little bit of a follow-up to this, but how do you think about within individual capacity? In other words, if you're a weight training and somebody there was squatting 135 pounds, one person, maybe that's a max, and one person that's, a min. Like, so in terms of each individual athletes and how they're straining themselves,
Yep.
I would think that would be a useful data point to a coach, to a trainer. How do you think about things like that in terms of making your data useful and enabling useful decisions out of it?
Yeah, so that's kind of what the data is meant for. Again, each athlete has their own force velocity curve, right? If you lift more weight, your velocity is lower because it's heavier. If you lift less weight, the velocity is higher. So basically what we enable is a coach will prescribe lift at this velocity. And if you can't hit that velocity, take a little weight off the bar and lift a little lighter that day. If you're kind of overperforming, you can lift a little heavier. So it kind of puts a lot of these variables in a black box and allows an athlete to lift correctly based on their energy level on that given day. If that makes sense.
Got it. And then would you over time collect other data around the athlete's day? Because strain is not just what they're doing while weightlifting, it's also what they've done in the practice before.
Exactly, and that's a huge problem in this market is kind of companies like ours, data collection devices, a lot of this data is kind of siloed in various areas, right? And there are other athlete management systems trying to solve this problem, but the goal would be to collect strain data across the weight room, the field via GPS coordinates, get your heart rate and your heart rate variability from other wearable devices, and combine that all into one kind of model, and really get an overall picture of kind of how the athlete is performing.
I see. I'll do one more. Do you risk then becoming more commoditized in a sense because there are tons of companies doing that already? So you'd add the obviously very valuable piece there, but then you do become, like a Sportstech variable company focused on all the physiological data.
We are different because we're measuring external work, and it's wearable devices, things like that can't really track the quality of movement the way we're doing. We just capture way more information and offer it in a very seamless and passive experience. And the technology we've developed is we're not worried about people coming in and doing similar stuff. It's taken us a year and a half, 2 years to develop this from scratch, and I think we have a big head start.
Last quick one, just on the user experience going forward, how are you thinking about that? I'm picturing this in a commercial gym and everyone's having to kind of log into machines and switch in and out. How do you envision that working in the future?
Yeah, that's a big reason we chose to use computer vision as opposed to other technology. It's we want to make this as seamless as possible, especially in the commercial market. That's really, really important. So we envision if you're working with a personal trainer, for instance, it's they're writing workouts for you. We envision you walk up, we use facial recognition to recognize you, we pull up your workouts delivered directly to you. You work out, you get that real-time feedback, and then it's all saved and stored. And then by forming good relationships with partners, we can access data from treadmills, resistance training machines, you name it, and really form that complete picture.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you, judges. Thank you, Jacob. Next up, we have GameFace AI.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Nick Karitzis. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer for GameFace. We once upon a time thought that oil was quite expensive, but let me tell you that gathering data is a very expensive process today. Most times it's manual, it can be inaccurate, and it can be delayed. Over the 2017-2018 season, we found that there was in excess of $20 billion spent by the 5 global leagues and broadcasters collecting data and trying to analyse data. GameFace is concerned with the act and process of knowing about sport. We're an AI-powered real-time data capture and analytics company. We're camera agnostic, and what I mean by that is we get to capture information from a single camera, a broadcast camera, and everywhere in between. And the vision for that, pun intended, is that we want to be accessible to everybody. We want to be accessible to the consumer, to the coach on the weekend that wants some analytics, to the broadcaster and everybody in between. We capture information 100 times faster and are more efficient and 10 times more data points than the human eye can. and the current methodology. We don't need any wearables, we don't need any expensive camera setups, and we work off real-time live video and archive footage. Gee, we can even analyse YouTube videos, and we have. Our solution, our platform, it learns, it understands, it thinks. It can do facial recognition, it can identify objects, it can track a ball, it can track an event, an action. It provides real-time insights and without the delays. Our business model is a double model approach. We have a SaaS model and an API model. From a SaaS model, imagine the weekend coach taking a video of his team, going back home, loading it up, having lunch, coming back, and being provided with a platform where he, on his y-axis, he's able to have a look at the various events and a timeline, click on the actual event and go to that specific part of the video and have a look from a simple end. From an API perspective, broadcasters, they want to know at the moment something happens in an actual event. Gaming companies want to know exactly what's going on. So we're able to provide a model that suits all. So high schools can use it for home and away analysis. They can even have a look and see what the competition's doing. From that perspective, we capture as much information as we can off one camera or multiple cameras. The total accessible market is growing excessively fast. It's over $350 billion, and we can cover all aspects of it. We're on the playing field. We have an incredible team. Our CEO has many years' experience, has worked with Telstra, Sony, Apple. What he doesn't know about video streaming and video capture doesn't need to be known. Our chief architect worked for the Indian Space Research. His machine learning is phenomenal. Our computer vision expert, he keeps on seeing there's problems that come up and he just keeps on tackling it. Myself, I've had 30 years' experience in the social media marketing space. I've been blessed to have campaigns that have run in the top 10 global, trended in the top 10 globally. And Anthony, he's an advisor that allows us to scale what we're doing. A quick look at our platform, cricket. Why? Because I'm from down under. And it's played in 105 countries. From the dashboard, you can see that the event detections are picked up instantaneously. From an advanced analytics perspective, you'll see that the specific poses, we know when the ball leaves the hand of the bowler, where it accurately pitches to within an inch. The stroke played, there's an enormous amount of information can be extracted from that. Player stats. When you currently look at the way it's measured, there's a person sitting there trying to identify where the ball landed on the pitch and the ball's travelling at 100 miles an hour. Absolutely amazing. From event detection in soccer, this gentleman thought he just scored a try. Our platform has the ability to say, sorry, yellow flag. Wasn't it? Not a try, a goal, sorry. We can track players, we can track the whole team. The whole idea is to provide player and match and team metrics. We can do heat maps. We know how fast a player can run, where he's run, how many steps he's done. You know, can he perform high intensity sprints and how long he can do that for. As I said, we are a data capturing side. Our analytics, we're early in our analytics aspect of things. We've spoken to quite a number of attendees here that have said, give us some data. You know, we want data. When my response to that is, look, you know your sport better than us. We're sport agnostic, but you tell us what you want, give us a feed, and we'll tick the boxes and tell you, yes, we can do this, this, and this, and if we can't do something, well, we'll make an attempt, but, you know, we might be able to tick 18 out of the 20 boxes of information that you want. But we can provide you data. We can provide it to the man that takes a video on the weekend. We can provide it to the athlete that, the elite athlete that wants to have a camera either side of him and, you know, analysing his stroke. He might think he's playing the right stroke, but we can provide him information to allow him to assess that. And that's pretty much it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can you talk, maybe I missed it a little bit, or could you talk a little bit about what you guys are thinking about in terms of your first target market? Like, are you going after the professionals? Are you going after the junior leagues?
Good question. We have strategic partnerships already with entities that can provide us videos, tier 2 videos, broadcasters as well. We are communicating with teams direct, whether they're international teams as such or high schools. High schools is a huge market. Coaches want to know how their team is performing on the day, how the opposition is performing, how you're performing at home and how you're performing away as well. The interesting thing is the market's coming to us. We're marketing the fact that we can actually provide you this data. And it's exciting to see that the market is actually coming to us and saying, well, okay, great, here's my video. And we've got some incredible videos that we've tried to analyse sometimes. We just ran a proof of concept for Cricket Australia and ended up winning a 3-year contractual agreement with them where we looked at the under-17 summer cricket. We were able to analyse 65% of the video given to us for the simple reason that someone held a camera this high. You really need it a little bit higher so that it does clear the umpire. The umpire stands in front. Some of the videos weren't in sharp focus as such. You do get that difficulty. But when set up correctly, and I'm only talking about one camera, if you introduce more cameras, then the information that you receive and the data you receive is a hell of a lot more accurate and simple.
So we saw cricket and we saw soccer. What other sports could you turn on now?
The system is such that when you look, I like to explain it like this. It's an 8-year-old looking at the TV, looking at a game for the first time, and he or she comprehends a certain amount of information. The more games that it sees, the greater her or his comprehension of the game. We have a medium level of confidence when we initially start, but the AI platform really kicks in with the more data that it gives it, with the more video that is pushed through. We've looked at rugby, we've looked at Australian football, we've looked at the NRL, the rugby league, tennis. We've been asked to calculate information which allows associations to measure match integrity, which is an important factor at a high level. Individual performances, is an athlete performing to his peak based on history? So we provide the data. There are exceptional companies out there that actually take that data and model it in their own AI platform. And that's fantastic too. And on our roadmap, we have the intention of doing a similar sort of scenario. But at this point in time, we're capturing data off a video. It could be archive footage. It could be footage from 30, 40 years ago. It could be a YouTube video. It could be something that, Dad shot of the child playing on the weekend.
Okay. So, and I guess on some of these, with one camera, you're obviously missing a lot. Yeah. And so so the data sets aren't necessarily complete. And so is that, how do you deal with that? And what does the data mean when you don't actually have a complete data set?
We provide a level of confidence with the information that we produce. At the same time, we tell them the more cameras, the greater the accuracy and the higher the level of confidence with the information they're receiving. If you're looking at Hawkeye that has an exclusive 12 camera set scenario and costs an arm and a leg, well, you're getting incredible data. From a cricket perspective, we've got a camera behind the umpire which focuses down to the batsman, and we've got a camera on the side. The amount of information that we capture is just as much as what we do Hawkeye can capture, at a minimal of the cost.
Mm-hmm. And what is the sort of the entry point for price? If I'm a professional team, what are you charging me for the system? And do I get all of my own raw data?
Yes, you do get all your own raw data, and the price it's from a professional team. It's an annual license agreement, and it depends on the number of games. And it's not just the live games; it's also the training games. If you're only performing 50% of the training, you're not going to perform 100%. So we can provide this information to the coaches and their inner team as such in order to do so. The pricing varies. There's many variables, but the pricing varies. But the secret about the whole thing is that For the mums and dads, there is a certain price, and the system has less functionality at the top end. It's full functionality. So basically, it depends on what you want.
Okay. I'm curious to hear more about just the commercial opportunity that you think you have. We heard cricket, soccer, rugby, football, tennis, high school, right? A whole range of. Have you guys thought about like where you think, based on the pricing you describe, you think you can really make money?
The reason we focused predominantly on cricket and soccer is that cricket's played in 105 countries around the world. Soccer's played in, I think, 211. So they're the two main sports. We're sports agnostic because we can track the ball, we can track the player. We have a medium level of confidence that where we can start off and start building on that. We've been approached by many companies. If I'm completely transparent, we're delaying the time of doing proof of concepts for them because we're a startup. We've got we're resource limited as such. We're currently looking to employ another computer vision and machine language software engineer. CVs are welcome, ladies and gentlemen. So the more we grow, the more sports we can take on.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Signality Sports.
All right. Hi, my name is Hampus Fristedt. I'm a developer at Signality, and I'm here to talk about our mission in building the best technology platform for powering league innovation with new types of data and insights in real time. So let's look at the current state of data collections. In this image, you have multiple cameras, you have operators, a bunch of laptops, and a typical tracking setup often includes even more complications, so wearables, sensors and receivers. All of these things, they're expensive to install, expensive to run, and they are a logistical and operations nightmare. So at Signality, we have a lightweight camera setup that's fully automated and produces tracking data in real time. Our typical setup is two fairly cheap surveillance cameras that you can mount, connect to our platform, and then leave alone. So using this, you get world-class tracking data for both players and the ball. Player data is tracked on an individual level, and using this tracking data, we can derive a lot of interesting stuff. We can get the basics, such as the number of passes a player makes, the distance a player runs, the number of sprints. We can also look at heat maps and movement patterns. Our setup is completely optical, so people often ask us about occlusion. So here's a short demo of how our platform working despite occlusion. So this is a free kick. Everyone standing in the same spot. The tracker will get temporarily confused, but once players disperse, you'll see it down in the left. There's a reassignment. People get confused by that, but that's actually a really good sign. It means that the tracker got confused, realized it, and fixed itself. This is part of how we can do individual player tracking completely automatically. You can also see the player names on the players. This is something that not a lot of people can do. On the infrastructure side, our tech is completely software-based. Everything runs in the cloud, so there's no servers or workstations to maintain. Our platform is based on state-of-the-art machine learning. We produce data in real time with a delay of about 6 seconds. Of these 6 seconds, we only need about 2 for filtering and smoothing. The rest is a processing delay that we're constantly working on reducing. We are a company based in Sweden. We're roughly 2 years old. In these 2 years, we've been thoroughly battle tested. Our platform has already been used to process over 1,000 games. We have a world-class team built by our 2 founders, Michael and Michael. We come from a bunch of different backgrounds, companies such as Skype and Apple. We have a really strong board of directors with experts in sports rights and global betting. Recently, we were invited by the UEFA to their innovation program. This is a really cool opportunity for us. I think we were selected alongside 7 companies, and it's a chance for us to work with them closely and get some mentorship and a chance to work on some interesting projects. We've also been invited by some of the world's biggest soccer leagues to RFPs and tests. In these RFPs, we were invited alongside much, much larger competitors, so that's been a huge honor and a nice challenge. And I'd like to conclude by pointing out that this is not a prototype. Our platform really works, and it works so well that 2 European leagues and multiple clubs have chosen to replace their existing complicated tracking setup with us because they know that our data is good and this stuff really works. So with that said, I'd like to thank you.
Thank you. Without knowing all the intricacies of the different metrics you track, can you describe how you foresee you guys winning versus maybe even the company that just went before you that doesn't require a camera installation?
We actually don't require camera installation. The reason why we are focusing on pitching that, it's because it's an actual product we're getting paid for. In terms of the larger competitors, I think we set ourselves apart by being focused on real time. A lot of these companies, they have this manual annotation. 4 hours after the game, they have people working on the data, correcting it. We're focusing on getting perfect data in real time. Yeah.
So just to follow up on that, what value do you drive with the real time? Like considering a game like soccer, right, where there's not a lot of timeouts, you're not, and it sounds like you're focused there, there's not ton of interaction with the players, except for halftime maybe.
Broadcasting and the media, they obviously need data in real time. So if they want to overlay some cool graphics, they can do that. They can also do, like, if they were to do heavy analytics using our data, they could have that and talk about it in the halftime show.
Would, just to follow, would broadcast media companies be your target market though, or would the actual clubs?
So we have sort of 2 business models. One is like tracking as a service where you send us video and we return tracking data. But our biggest deal is with the leagues, and there we have a revenue sharing model. So we do tracking for all the games, but we still have, and give the league the data, but we also have the ability to sell the data to other companies and share the profits. So we can sell the data to the media or to betting companies, fantasy sports, things like that.
There are a lot of tracking companies out. How do you compare your accuracy to the the startups and sort of the bigger players in that market now?
Yeah, so we don't have actual ground truth data for like error in terms of meters and stuff like that. But we have a person who's annotating all the tracks that we have after the game just to validate it and see if anyone's incorrectly assigned to a track. Mm-hmm. And for that, we say that we are 95% accurate in real time. And then in terms of like the error in terms of meters and stuff like that, we don't have it, but we know that we are good enough to actually win contracts. And we have clients already, and they had other solutions before, but they chose us. So obviously it works.
Okay. And in the soccer space, sounded like you have some basic soccer actions and a lot of sort of physical activity stuff. Is there any deeper, a plan to at least develop more deeper soccer analytics, so you're providing a whole solution to somebody, or is that just left to the clubs?
Yeah, we really want to push that once we have. We're still working on like solving soccer, mm-hmm. and part of that is having like insights as part of the pipeline. Yeah. So being able to detect certain events and like the end goal would be to have some type of like expected goal per decision. Mm-hmm. Looking at that, that's where we really want to be able to go.
Okay. Last question. Have you been able to actually successfully execute the selling of data model that you described, or are there any kind of roadblocks you've run into in terms of like the clubs not wanting to sell their data or anything like that?
So most of the clubs, they do the tracking as a service model where they pay per game and then they own the data completely. In terms of the league, we're only going to start with that from this season. So we haven't been able to explore that opportunity yet, but the season's about to start in a couple of months, so hopefully it's going to go well.
I hope so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to introduce Output Sports.
Hi, I'm Dr. Martin O'Reilly, CEO of Output Sports, and we're a company shrinking the whole sports science laboratory into a tiny wearable system that will revolutionize the way sports coaches optimize their athletes' performance. When me and my co-founder Dar finished our groundbreaking PhDs, we were awarded a large government grant to commercialize our research. And to make the biggest impact with this grant, the first thing we did was go out and ask over 60 world-leading sports performance coaches, what is it that's blocking you from improving your athlete's performance? And they repeatedly cited, in terms of testing and understanding their athlete's performance, having to rely on a whole suite of cumbersome, disparate kits such as force plates, contact grids, linear positions transducers, as a very inefficient and ineffective method of understanding their athletes. Beyond those technologies, they also relied on a whole suite of tracking and testing technologies. And with all our athletes and all these data sources, coaches have been absolutely swamped by data. So it appeared to us that although every sports coach and every sports technology company want to optimize performance, the overall landscape of technology to do so is very siloed and very suboptimal. And that's what we're fixing at Output Sports. On the surface, we are a single wearable sensor that can test and track all of an athlete's components of fitness. So if it's jump height, we're as accurate as a force plate. If it's speed and agility, we're as accurate as light gates. And if you run 15 of these in parallel, you can do your readiness to train testing in the morning 15 times quicker than current solutions. Our secret sauce, though, is not the wearable sensor at all. In fact, it's our data sets and our proprietary data science. Over 6 years of university research, we've collected over 10 terabytes of data that synchronize the data you get from wearables, which is really messy, with state-of-the-art research data that costs hundreds of thousands of dollars to collect. Through our bespoke machine learning, we convert the wearable sensor data to something akin to what you get from that research equipment. And what that results in is a single sensor system for athlete testing and tracking, which is highly efficient and highly effective. So, get ready for some buzzwords. We are data-driven, evidence-based, and a true end-to-end solution for athlete performance optimization. And crucially, we are 7 times more accurate than the current market leader in the wearable space. But we're not just about deep science. In fact, we are working with over 30 world-leading sports teams to ensure that our science meets their coaches' and athletes' needs. For instance, we're working with World Cup semi-finalists England football and the Patriots of Rugby, Leinster Rugby, to ensure that our science meets their needs. With this feedback and our years and years of groundbreaking research, we feel when we launch our first product in October 2019, we will have something truly groundbreaking for the sports performance space. The team making this all possible are an all-star mix of interdisciplinary experts in a variety of fields. Dr. Dara Whelan is a user experience expert with over 10 years experience as an athletic trainer. So he really deeply understands the problem that our tech is solving. CTO Julian Eberle is a teammate of mine on the Irish handball team, but also a tech wizard. By age 25, he was already the VP of data in Citigroup Dublin before he quit that and joined us on the Output mission. I myself am an interdisciplinary expert. I'm a sports science lecturer, but also an engineer and a machine learning expert. I'm one of Ireland's 30 under 30, and I was a nominee last year for the Lindau Nobel Laureate meeting. This team are really working hard to drive this technology forward to make a big impact in the sports performance space. The market for our technology, as evidenced by this conference, is absolutely booming. And because we are sport agnostic and applicable to both elite and sub-elite sport, we foresee that by 2023, our addressable market in the UK and Europe will be $6 billion. To generate revenue in this market, we will sell sensor packages, but crucially, we generate recurring revenue via a suite of software modules. Of most value is our data module, which takes the really high quality inputs that our system collects and links them to injury risk and talent identification in sport. Our strategy is to become the market leader in the off-field analysis of elite athletes by 2022. But because of the portability and practicality of our system, we also have the opportunity to bring the power of the sports science laboratory to a recreational and sub-elite level athlete level for the first time. And of course, we want to sponsor this conference in the future, not just be a startup competition entrant. So our first users believe that we are revolutionizing the fitness industry and that every performance coach will want to get their hands on our technology. And at Output Sports, that's exactly what we are striving every day to make a reality. Thank you very much. Hi.
Thank you. Very cool.
Thanks very much.
I'm curious about the data sets that you guys have, the market research data sets. They sound very interesting. Can you talk a little bit more about those data sets? Like what data sets do you currently have? How hard is it for other people to get their hands on them?
Yeah, so our data is really our foundation. So just for a bit of context, we're a spin out from Europe's biggest data analytics research centre in Ireland. It's across 5 universities. And me and Dara's PhDs involved 5 years of proprietary data collection. So what we did is we actually took data from wearables positioned all over the body, as well as, if you're familiar with like Vicon motion capture and force plates. And yeah, we spent years basically synchronizing the data from these with that state-of-the-art equipment. It requires a lot of time. It requires lots of money to have access to that equipment. And it requires some pretty bespoke expertise to be able to power all that different expertise and also apply the machine learning to it. So the data does really protect us, but also we have 3 invention disclosures which are being pushed forward for patent filing this year, and they protect the certain processes that we apply to the data as well.
Cool, thank you. One quick follow-on. How do you plan to, if at all, do you plan to refresh that data over time, and what does that look like?
Yeah, so we actually have a great advantage. So we're situated within the University College Dublin, so we can add to this data all the time. So as part of these trials we're doing with the likes of the English football team and the Irish football team, they come back to us and they say, this is great, but we'd also like X, Y, and Z. And we can literally go and collect the data and make it possible. So our process of data collection, sensor synchronization, a bespoke machine learning solution is applicable to any movement and any activity, and we have the resources to get it. So it's really exciting for us to always be able to meet that need. Additionally, the data we collect with the system allows us to identify injury risk factors and talent identification. So what we do is we actually store the whole sensor signal. So rather than store them as summary metrics such as jump height and say a degree as a level of flexibility, we have the whole signal, and that way you don't over summarize, and therefore you get higher accuracy in your injury prediction model as well. So that's another advantage to our data.
Thank you. Very cool. This is a busy, crowded market. There's so many players even at this conference, right? Pitching similar things. What's to stop somebody from replicating you guys?
Yeah, so our IP, as aforementioned, is a lot in the data.
Yep.
And then we have these 3 invention disclosures that we're pushing forward for patent this year. So they're 2 key aspects. And we also have a lot of know-how in how you actually convert the wearable sensor signals to laboratory grade quality. And so there's a lot of know-how, and there's patents in the pipeline, and then terabytes and terabytes of data that are needed to power our algorithms.
Got it. And then you mentioned October 2019 as your launch. How are you guys tracking to that?
Sorry, what?
How are you tracking to your product launch?
Oh, great. So at the moment, we have our second prototype built, and it's in the hands of the end users. And they're basically going to be our early adopters in the UK and Irish market.
Yep.
And then beyond that, we're focusing initially on elite sport with a big focus on the US and Europe to grow out that way. So some of our early partners have already put us in their budgets for when we launch. We can't actually sell our product while we're within the university. It's a little bit of an IP scenario, but it's all getting sorted. But effectively, we're rolling from partnerships into early customers by early October, and then we look to expand globally.
You mentioned that the data can provide injury risk information. What's the mechanism that translates the information the data you collect into actual injury risk information? How do you validate that?
Yes, so we've done some studies in-house over the last 5 years, taking the measurements our system provides and comparing it to basically follow-up injuries over a season. So it's not part of our current system, but one of the studies I was part of was published in the American Journal of Sports Medicine last month, and it looked at a balance task that we measure and associated the metric with the occurrence of concussion in elite rugby the following year. And what we found is it was more predictive than actually a history of concussion. So it was a new variable, allowed coaches to identify coaches that need a movement intervention and therefore mitigate their risk of injury. We never go as far as saying we can predict injury, but we can identify modifiable risk factors and athletes that need an intervention for them.
And you mentioned that your focus initially is just the really elite level. Are there thoughts to move to a more consumer? And if you are, how does this product differentiate itself for a consumer who may not be able to really see the accuracy difference?
Yeah, that's a really good point. So, yeah, absolutely, we do want to bring this beyond the elite level. I think you can imagine, even if we don't go right down to the recreational level, but if you think of a qualified strength and conditioning coach who currently is trying to build their own business, they can't afford a $10,000 force plate, a $3,000 set of light kits, etc. Whereas they can afford a few of these guys. So initially we'd go there. So it's people that have the expertise of how to use the data and they know the importance of the accuracy. And in the longer run, we have an R&D activity around putting extra context around the data, so educating users, and also effectively a virtual personal trainer solution that will take the inputs of our data and make recommendation to the everyday athlete. But that is in the pipeline. That's not completed yet.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you. Up next, we have Uplift Lab.
Right. Hi, I'm Masa, CEO and co-founder of Uplift Labs. For about a year, our seeds-funded startup, we've been in stealth mode, but we've chosen this venue here today to actually, for the first time, kind of show what we've been developing. So we're really excited to show you. Our vision is founded on making the world move better, whether it's through sports, fitness, or in our everyday lives. So we've heard a lot about wearables. In fact, actually I have an Apple Watch that's trying to keep me on time for this presentation, but they have good use cases, but we think it doesn't hold up when it comes to in-context analysis for biomechanics. So wouldn't it be great to find a solution that just automatically captures human movement and the biomechanics around that? In fact, there's no markers, we get full body analysis in real time. And where the game is being played, whether it's on the field, on the court, on the green. Our movement intelligence platform that we're revealing for the first time during this conference provides coaches, performance directors, a 360-degree view of the athlete. This is how we do it. So this is Rahul, our other co-founder, back in our lab, and he's doing a swing. And if we just pan a little closer to our development kit, you can see that we're taking 14 of the major joints and recreating a skeleton with an overlay on the visual. And what's really actually cool about this is that we use off-the-shelf cameras, whether it's GoPro cameras or IP cameras, security cameras, or even your smartphone. All you need is two. Fixed positions, calibrate once, and anybody can keep going in and out, and it automatically calibrates. It's like magic. And the other thing we want to announce today that we're super excited about this milestone is we're partnering with the world's largest golf instruction company, GolfTech. And together, we're transitioning from their current wearable solutions to one where any student of theirs just comes up in a golf bay, and then they're able to just start swinging to help reduce their handicap. We're gradually rolling this out through all their 220 training centers here in the US as well as worldwide. Now, we've heard a lot about strength training as well. Here's Rahul doing some squats, and that was actually pretty good form. But if you look at the next one, you can see he's overexerting forward, and we all know that it's a good cause for back injuries where his shoulders are in front of his knees. So this gives real-time notification information to not only to the athlete training in real time, but also the coach as well. Because, I mean, if you have an important game, you certainly don't want to get hurt or injured in the weight room. So what does it look like when it's in context? So this is our cloud-based visualization app where a coach can just use any browser anywhere to determine the skeletal recreation of the kinematics. and it's synchronized with the video, as you can see here. And what we did here is we took just 2 ordinary GoPros, mounted them on the poles of a tennis court, and then you can see here, we're calculating velocity, we're calculating mass of the body, but also we can choose any one of these 14 joints. For example, here we have a right elbow joint selected, so you can see the acceleration, the velocity, as well as joint angles. And even furthermore, you can track you can shift the timeline, you can go anywhere, and get a total 360 view on that athlete of what's going on, and also understand performance over time. So our movement intelligence platform, we provide, again, performance directors, coaches, and athletes a very new perspective in their performance and to help reduce injuries. In fact, we've surely patented this as well. Our target markets were committed to the sports market, and that's why we're here at this conference, because we want to work together with world-class organizations. But our mission, going back, is to truly democratize this technology across multiple verticals, whether it's youth sports, whether it's workers in warehouses, or even for the elderly, to have them all move better globally. So our background is from technology. We've all worked for innovative companies that are extremely focused on the user experience. I myself has been at Tesla, running Tesla in Japan, scaling the organization. Jonathan, another co-founder, he was running GoPro's computer vision team. So again, we think you're born with the best wearable possible, which is your body. Thank you very much.
Great to meet you. Great to have you at the conference.
Thank you.
Was wondering if you could just describe your patent a little bit more. You don't have to go into all the details, but just I wasn't clear on what the patent was exactly for. Is it motion detection? Is it in a specific sport?
Yes. So it's not for a specific sport. It's for any type of space that we can identify an individual, where they are, what they're doing when it comes to biomechanics, to be able to describe that, and then even further to prescribe, for example, if it's injury related, motion activity, or in fact, actually, if it's counting sets and reps, for example. It's a pretty somewhat broad patent.
Got it. And then can you talk a little bit about any other analytics that you hope to enable through this platform?
Yeah, absolutely. So for example, some of the associations and other athletic teams that we're actually talking to at the moment under NDA, we're looking at like movement efficiency, because we've seen like if a player, for example, in the area of tennis, if they constantly accelerate, decelerate, accelerate, decelerate, they're going to get more fatigued. So how do you prevent fatigue of the players, for example?
Yep, great.
Are there specific measurements or metrics this can't track that a wearable can?
So face, in terms of like if you want to recreate like the Planet of the Apes, like Caesar, for entertainment purposes, but we're not there. In fact, I'm glad you asked that, because one thing that I need to highlight is that our accuracy is in the millimeters, just using 2 ordinary cameras. And so to establish ground truth, we've actually been using industry-grade wearables with markers and sensors to make sure we establish ground truth, meaning the correlation that is highly accurate by the millimeters.
Got it. And you mentioned acceleration, velocity, and metrics like that. There are
Yes.
others that wearables track.
Correct, yes.
What, beyond face, are there other specific metrics that you think you're missing, or?
So at the moment, I'm kind of looking at my CT over there, but I don't think we can do heart rate, which is a big thing, especially like Orange Theory and other quantified self activities. But really when it comes, and actually that's a great point also, because that's why we're also here. We're working, for example, in the case of Golf Tech, we're working with our sports scientists, their technology department, but the business case as well, right, for operational efficiency. So it's coming from the CEO level. We believe to work holistically with an organization to ensure it's not just about, like, say, what the performance director wants, but even what a manager may want, or even looking at the costs.
Got it. Okay, and final question. Sports is obviously a big category. You had it circled
Yes.
on there. You mentioned golf. Where else are you looking?
Within sports? Or?
Yeah, it seems like that's your
Yes.
primary focus
Yeah.
right now.
So right now, I mean, again, we're only 1 year old, so we need to be laser focused and deliver something that's amazing and absolutely works. So we're dedicated to sort of single player swing sports. And that's sort of the era that we've been having a lot of dialogues and early pilot activity. But soon we're going to be moving on because we have to constantly innovate. And we're out in Palo Alto, so that's kind of our mantra. We're going to do both two-directional. We're going to be going into multiple people, multiple cameras, and we're already at beta, as well as single camera. So anybody can whip out their smartphone and start getting these key kinematics. So you can root for your kid at their baseball game or soccer game.
So there's a lot of data points that you can collect, and particularly since you're offering to prescribe motion activities and things, how do you know which of those things actually matter?
Absolutely important question. If you're not solving a pain point, it's just technology for technology. This case. So as mentioned, all the current engagements, we're actually working most closely with performance directors or people who can actually make sense of the data, translate. The demo that I just showed you, for example, the average person probably wouldn't make much sense of that. I mean, it's kind of cool to see your skeleton and wrap around in 3D like an avatar, but that's one of the goals that we have in further development as we raise our Series A this year to scale the team where we're moving up the stack, as they say, to get those prescriptive analytics so the UI is so easy to understand, even for the average recreational player.
Okay, so you're relying on the expertise of these directors to give you the information about how to translate this information into something a user would want to do.
Correct,
okay.
Which is why we're set up as a B2B enterprise company at the moment. Okay. But then we're moving to B2B2C.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, I'd like to introduce Platypus Neuro.
Platypus Neuro works with the world's most elite performers, including professional athletes, hedge fund traders, CEOs. What we offer is a brain upgrade. We use advanced neurotechnology to rewire, upgrade clients' brains, and that translates directly into improved real-world performance. So as you consider the investment prospects here, there's 3 reasons we represent a good investment opportunity. First of all, we really do have an extraordinary management team. I'm the founder and CEO. This is my 4th company. The smallest company I've built before this grew to $100 million in value. The most recent company generated a 90x return, cash on cash, to early stage investors. This will do the same. Our chief science officer, Dr. Amy Cruz, she basically invented the neuroperformance industry as DARPA's first program manager in that arena, and the management team goes on. We are absolutely at the right place at the right time. So the neuroperformance industry is growing rapidly, and it's going to be a major industry. Why is that? It's because of the value. It's because of the performance impact it has in multiple scenarios. So in sports, it's going to be a competitive necessity for sports teams because of the impact it has on athlete performance. Finally, we have a pretty significant competitive advantage. We have $300 million worth of intellectual property that we have acquired, foundational to the industry, so that gives us a head start over our competitors, but more importantly, it allows us to develop more value for our customers. So for a sense of our product offering, here's a quick video.
You chose a long time ago. You chose to win. You chose to be your best. You know what it takes. If you want to rise to a new level, you gotta disrupt yourself, improve your methods, unleash your mind. Welcome to Human 2.0, a revolutionary program powered by decades of science for elite professionals like you, to help you dominate your game, to help you rise beyond what you believe is possible, to help you become faster, smarter, stronger than ever before. How? By rewiring your brain. You'll begin with a baseline brain assessment so you can discover exactly how your brain stacks up against your peers and what you need to do to get to the next level. Then, you'll get a personalized brain training program, scientifically proven boosts that rewire and upgrade your brain where it matters to you. Say you're a basketball player. You'll get boosts that increase your memory so you can keep track of all the information coming at you. Boosts that increase your brain's processing speed so you can anticipate plays faster. Boosts that train you how to get your brain in the zone so your free throw percentage goes up. We'll also give you the tools you need to track your progress and continually readjust for optimum results. Of course, you get different boosts if you're a baseball player, soccer player, a musician, or a financial trader, all based on what you need to be your best. After 6 weeks, with 15 to 30 minutes of training a day, you'll see dramatic, guaranteed results. After 6 months, you'll be at the top of your game. You'll have become Human 2.0. So are you ready? Then rise.
I still get pumped every time I see that video. So it's no secret in the sports industry, we've kind of hit a plateau from a physical advantage standpoint. Where we come in and where I think we like to describe ourselves as personal trainers from the neck up. So just like you would expect to be able to have metrics associated with performance from a physical standpoint, we come at it from a cognitive standpoint. We measure those metrics, we standardize them against your own teammates, against your own sport, across domains, provide those areas of expertise where we can improve training and get you to the next level. So great, how does that work? Let's take a quick example. Baseball. We all know speed is king when it comes for pitching. 95-mile-per-hour fastball, you have about 350 milliseconds to hit the ball from the time that pitch is released to the time it crosses the plate. Pitches that are 95 and above are harder to hit than pitches that are below that speed. So obviously we want to be able to get people to hit the ball better, right? So where does neuroscience and neuroperformance come in as a competitive advantage? Did you get it? That was 350 milliseconds. Let's try it again. Oh, okay. Here's the point, is that if we can simply improve, and we've already done this, by 12% in terms of brain efficiency and visual processing, we turn that 95-mile-per-hour baseball pitch into a perceived 89-mile-per-hour baseball pitch. Simple example, simple result. So neuroperformance is the next wave. Whether you choose us or somebody not as good as us, this is where things are going to be. So welcome to neuroperformance and welcome to Human 2.0. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. It's really interesting. I'm curious. So, you say the training is domain specific? If you're a basketball player, you get one kind of training, and a baseball player another kind. How do you determine what works for each sport, and is it validated with on-field, in-game performance?
Yeah. You want to?
Yeah. So the overall Human 2.0 upgrade program is sports agnostic. So again, like David mentioned, whether you're a hedge fund trader or an NBA player, the cognitive metrics associated with performance are similar across those veins. When you get into sports specificity, something like free throw shooting, we would actually have a neurofeedback program designed just for that. For golf putting, designed just for that, based off of neuroscience findings that have identified a unique signal for that skill set. So the overall program is sports agnostic, but when you want to focus on improvement of a specific skill set within sport, there's validated science and technology behind that to improve that piece of their performance.
One other thing is, sort of a basic principle of the company is we're not going to do anything unless we are confident and we can demonstrate that the science is valid, not only that we can improve the brain, but that it's got a real-world impact in the field. It's a sort of foundation to everything we do.
And do we know about the time frame of the impact? Like, do you have to do this all the time, or is it something that once you do it, you're set?
So I'll give you
rewired.
I'll give you one quick example. If you want to train visual processing and increase it, we can increase visual processing 20 to 30% in about 6 weeks, with 15 minutes a day of training 3 times a week. That is retained for years. It does diminish, but the maintenance schedule is actually lower than that. And this is all very well-known science.
Great. Thank you, guys. Very interesting. What is the training? What do you do?
Yeah, so from a general standpoint, again, sports agnostic, let's identify, like David said, visual processing is something that we can help you improve on, right? Tablet-based, smartphone-based, laptop, you can do it from your hotel room, do it on the physio table, even on in the ice bath, right? The idea is it's smart technology. You're basically interacting with competitive, gamified, scientific interventions to improve that specific piece.
So no, that's a great question.
Yeah,
let me give you another example, which I think is maybe going to be a little bit more clear. Okay, so with free throws, there is a brain signature that's associated with being able to make a free throw. This has been validated a lot. So there's this kind of zone you get into. We can measure and train it. So what we've got a headband. It's got 4 sensors on it. We're measuring with those sensors if the brain is in the zone or not. We connect that headband via Bluetooth, you saw this in the video, to a light on the rim of the basket. So when someone's practicing, when they get into the zone, the light turns on. This has been tested with snipers, this has been tested in archery, this has been tested in golf. It generates meaningful improvements in performance. So for example, in a free throw setting, you can essentially guarantee a 5-point increase in free throw percentages. It's a very tangible use case. But how you would train visual processing is tablet-based, and we could walk you through that system. There too, it's kind of a game where you follow a lot of objects on the screen, and it pushes your brain to be able to rewire and improve the processing speed. But again, each one of these skills gets trained differently based on validated science. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you have examples of athletes that have gone through the program and seen very specific examples in performance improvement,
So,
especially back to this question, how that lasted over time?
Right. So we've worked with both internationally and within the U.S. across all the major sports, baseball, football, basketball. I've had field goal kickers wearing EEG headsets while they're on the field kicking. So the field is our lab in terms of validation of real-world performance. The assessment aspect of it, we came off of a World Championship, World Cup championship team in rugby, and had done the assessment on every player on the team. The coaching staff has now changed how they're treating their players, how they're coaching their players, based off of the new insights that they've received from us from a neurocognitive standpoint, and have been improving and optimizing their training strategy for each individual player and getting a lot of success from that.
Again, we don't sell anything unless we can show here's science and here's a validated field test example where it has worked. And so we've spent an enormous amount of time and money doing formal scientific case studies with this, showing we can make improvements, and we've got publishable data. Yeah.
And can you just talk a little bit about how are you kind of assessing and ranking performance to start? Like, what's your baseline? Did you buy a data set, or are you just comparing the internal
We're comparing to a 10-year data set collected in the military to which we have access. Among a whole range of military professionals, we're now building a large data set for athletes.
Yeah, and that data set's inclusive to brain data, EEG, physiological measures like heart rate, galvanic skin, eye tracking, behavioral measures, neurocognitive, neuropsychological measures to essentially create a standardized metric-based profile for an individual. It gives us the opportunity to compare me versus me over time, me versus my colleagues in my sport versus elite operators in the special communities for military or a hedge fund trader. So,
perfect. One last fun question.
Yes.
Why is the name Platypus?
So it's a good question. When we formulated the company, we had the sense of us being made up of a whole lot of different pieces that haven't been put together before. And so, the platypus has a duck bill and an otter tail, and it lays eggs. So we kind of like that. But the other thing is, it's a bunch of neuroscientists, and we don't want to take ourselves too seriously. From a branding point of view, everybody asks the question, so no one forgets the name. So that was the choice. Okay.
Cool.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thank you. I'd like to introduce Optimal Player Solutions.
Quiddix AI, artificial intelligence. Funny story about artificial intelligence. When I was a senior in college, I interviewed with a company that claimed to be a leader in artificial intelligence, and I was very interested. After the interview, I asked, what is this artificial intelligence that you're working on? And the interviewer said to me, kind of chuckled first and said, you know when you walk into a grocery store and the sliding doors open automatically? We call that AI.
So here we are today, where companies are testing the use of self-driving vehicles to deliver our groceries. And we believe that as artificial intelligence is revolutionizing how we drive cars, so too will Quiddix AI revolutionize the player trade process. Why? Because Quiddix AI enables professional teams to more efficiently make the leap from all this data, this mountains of data that they have, to player trade decisions. And how is this going to happen? Because what was once impossible due to the limitations of the human mind is now possible because of the computational speed and power of Quiddix AI. And here's a little sampling of how it works.
Okay, so imagine in this scenario, you're an analyst with the Mets and you're looking for trades with other teams. So you see this list of trades. There's a number next to it. The higher the number, the better. And so you select a team that you're interested in. And then up pops some positions that you can trade with that team. And you select the positions that are interested in you and you click submit. And then you get a list of about 10 or 12 trades here. And it gives you some very high level information that how good is the trade to you, how good is it to your partner, how likely is it to happen, how does it affect my cap overall. And you can drill down on the trades and get some text trade summary. So this is just plain text. Okay, you got a first baseman, he's 60 points better than your last first baseman, and you gave away this first baseman and so on. And you can drill down even more and get a graphical analysis. This shows before and after. So green is after, green is good. So you can see the area there is bigger than it was before. And then you can move on down the list and just drill down on each of these trades. And so what's under the hood? What is the artificial intelligence? It's a genetic algorithm. And breeders do this all the time. Basically, you start with an initial population of animals and you select the best animal that fits your criteria, and then you breed them together. You have offspring. You breed the best of the offspring, and so on until you get an animal that's very fit to what you wanted.
So our revenue sources are software licensing fees, software support, training, software upgrades. In our market are professional sports teams in professional basketball, baseball, football, hockey, and soccer. Our leadership team is Tom, is 20 years as a software developer, has done work for Procter & Gamble and Toyota, and I've got a 20-year experience in professional baseball with the Cincinnati Reds and the Pittsburgh Pirates. Some of the features of the product: teams use their own proprietary data and processes. We are not data providers. Teams see optimal trades in real time. There's a broad and deep analysis capability. When you saw the top line 50,000 foot view in an earlier slide where we talked about salary cap and even intangibles such as leadership and that type of thing, there's an analysis underneath that. So if the decision maker wants to see more detail on it, it's available to them. It can handle multiple teams and player contracts. You can do 3 for 2, 2 for 3, 2 teams, 3 teams, 4 teams, all those types of things. It includes contract status, draft picks, cash. It handles all the team's database information, can be updated after every player transaction or roster move, either yours or other teams, and it's secure behind the team's own firewalls. So in summary, the benefit is it saves teams time and money and helps them make more informed decisions. It saves them time because they can see more information faster, and time is money, and they can make better decisions because they have more information. So in essence, Quiddix helps them bridge the gap between their big data and their trade decisions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. I'm curious a little bit more about your algorithms. We don't have to get into the total details of it, but a couple of questions. I'm curious just how you've trained some of your scoring system, like by sport or otherwise.
Sure. In GA's genetic algorithms, they have this fitness function. So, and it's really, if you think of that example I gave earlier of the Mets, each analyst would have their own fitness function. So they'd say, one analyst might place intangibles higher than another analyst. And so they would develop their own fitness function, and the GA would breed solutions that were perfect for them. And then they could share that with the organization, and maybe another analyst had a different look at it, and they could get together and share their documentation and come to just collaborate on which trade they want to do.
Okay.
Did that answer?
I think so. And the scoring system itself, it seems pretty proprietary. How do you plan to kind of build belief in, I just saw some scores on the screen, like how do you plan to build belief in that scoring system and overcome like an adoption hurdle?
Well, the score, all the data is theirs and remains with them. We don't see any data at all. It's all their internal stuff. We provide a product that helps them manage their data in a more efficient manner, and again gets them from that data to the decision.
But are you producing a score? It looked like you were producing some kind of output score of, you had a ranking of teams, here's the best one to trade with, and you clicked in and so forth.
Yeah, we do. So again, back to the analyst as a breeder, they're going to pick the animals that they like best, and those will come up, they'll be scored, and they can click on through the list and find the ones that they like best. It's not an overall, this is the final organization decision, this is the best. Each analyst has their own look at the data.
This is more about providing, this is one of the things too, that this is not about the artificial intelligence making the decision. This is about the artificial intelligence providing alternatives. We met with the team not long ago, and the guy asked the question, so this can give me a bunch of trades that I can take a look at, and some of them I may say, you know what, that's not going to work, we're not interested in that, but this one, okay. And so it's about an alternative type thing but they're the final decision makers on it.
Okay.
So trade decision's obviously a huge decision for a team. A lot of teams are doing some of this in-house already.
Right.
Have you thought about how many are doing in-house within your market? Like, what's the penetration? How many are even willing to give up some money to get another opinion on this? How do you compete with that?
In-house, yeah. There are a lot of teams that have in-house solutions, and in software development, we call that the buy versus build solution. So when we talk to teams that have gone with, they're going to build their own, we can certainly help them still, obviously, as a second opinion. Overall, if you build it yourself, your application can only scale as large as your own organization. So we would recommend to these teams that they buy a solution, because Quidix, our solution, can scale as large as the whole market. I'll give you an example of that. So I used to work for a large corporation. They were doing a buy versus build. They wanted to be able to search all their corporate documents. And so they wanted to build their own search solution, text search solution. And they asked me, like, well, should we build this, or should we buy this, at the time, new company, this Google company can bring in this Blade server and we can use them. And so, Google obviously could scale huge because everybody wants to do search, but this small organization, they weren't really, that wasn't their core competency, search. So I recommended that they go with Google to do the search. So in the build versus buy, I would recommend that these organizations, these professional sports teams, go with the buy.
What does an optimal trade mean?
I think I'll take that one again. It's analyst by analyst. It's breeder by breeder. So to somebody who's trying to breed a teacup poodle, the optimal solution looks a lot different from somebody who's trying to breed a hunting dog. So if you're an analyst for the Mets and you value, in baseball they use WAR. So let's say you're a big WAR proponent. So you're like, I want to maximize my WAR. And of course, I want to do it subject to these other constraints in the organization, my cap, and et cetera, et cetera. And of course, it's got to be a somewhat likely trade to happen. So this is part of what a breeder would call a fitness function. So back to the teacup poodle, like, all right, that dog's too big. I want it to be smaller. I want the hair to be white, and it needs to be able to jump up on my lap. That's the way a breeder thinks about it.
Okay. And now, how do you assess how likely a trade is to happen?
That's there's maybe you should answer this one.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
How do you assess how likely a trade is to happen?
Well, I think a lot depends on the club itself, and they do the searches in a couple different ways. One, there are position searches where we need relief pitching, we need back end, bullpen, whatever we need, and then there are team searches, and a lot of it is based on the numbers that they have, that they put through their data, and then what comes out, and there's going to be a metric that they're looking for. And if it falls within the range of that type of thing, then it's something that they would take a look at. And there are trades that, there are some things that happen that people don't expect. For example, just a great example of that's the Chris Paul trade that Houston made a couple of years ago. They've got a great point guard. Why do we need another one? So you've got all these other things that play into it. But a lot of the optimal stuff is set up by their own data and the way they perceive things.
Right, but how do you, likelihood of a trade happening is an objective thing.
Right.
How do you, what are you testing, how are you measuring that specific measure?
Teams have knowledge about each other. We talked about this earlier.
Yeah, well, and it's the type of thing, too, where all we're giving them is a list of alternatives based on data that they use themselves. So a lot of that, once they get that list, then a lot of it becomes a human function where the GM or the decision maker will say, I'm not interested in that one. If I'm in conversation with this guy about that one, we'll have that conversation. And then things can evolve from there. I mean, this is by no means a end-all, be-all solution. It's more to give them choices, give them things maybe they haven't thought about. But again, an analyst to work up a list of trades like this would take hours, where what we are proposing is a system that gives us, you click the button and you get as many as you want, or you get as few as you want to look at based on your data.
Okay. And does the algorithm know the collective bargaining agreement?
It does. Yes.
So it knows. So
Yes.
when that changes, does it change the likelihood of a trade?
That depends on the team. I mean, that's such a I think that it gets into things like service time and that kind of stuff. Whereas if I have a guy who's at this level under team control, and the collective bargaining agreement changes so that my length or shortness of time changes, then it certainly could impact it. Yeah.
One final quick question. I know we're getting the pull here. Have you run any just pilots, or whether real or simulated, that have predicted the right trade, or retroactively you've been able to predict the right trade?
Yes. The answer is yes. I'm the developer. So yeah, we've got demos. The software, it's not vaporware. It's real software. You can come by and I can give you a demo and you can see, is this good advice or bad advice? Of course, it depends upon the analyst, what you value, your fitness function, whether you're going to think it's correct or not. But yeah, I have demos going back a few years that if somebody ever wanted to do, proof of concept work to see if it worked, it's already been worked up.
Cool. Great. Thank you, guys.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Good. Cool. So We just wanted to thank everybody for coming. Thanks to the 8 startups who were participating. The fan experience track, where we'll feature the other 6 startups, will start in about 30 minutes at 2:15. The awards for this, including who wins, will be happening at the Alpha Awards ceremony, which will be at 5:30 in the Bill James room. I've been asked if the judges can come up for a picture, and then if there's any startups here who would like a picture as well, we can do that as well. Cool, and yeah, thank you very much, and we'll see you in 30 minutes for the other track. If you haven't checked out these startups in the hallway by the Bill James room, they're very, very, very good. Thanks.